Well, I said in my preview, and I agree, anything less than a win against this Plymouth side was inexcusable. Boro dropped points away to Plymouth in a defensive display that, quite honestly, was inexcusable. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Project Boro, the series here on the channel where we review every single Boro game. And today we come away from Home Park with a point, which you could say, looking back at Plymouth's last 7, they'd only lost one of the last 7 home games, and you go, a point away from there is probably a good result. You might look at the conditions and say, yeah, tough conditions, a lot of wind, a lot of rain, point was a good result. And you could also look at it, from Boro coming from 3, coming from behind 3 times to draw level, you could say, yeah, it's a good point. But for me, the defensive display in this game was absolutely atrocious. And the first half especially was absolutely dreadful from Boro. Probably, arguably, one of the worst under Michael Carrick that we've had. And when we look at the stats and we paint a picture of the game, we have got out of jail, I think, coming away from here with a point, because especially first half, the chances Plymouth had, the game should have been done by then. So they should be the team disappointed that they've not won this game. We should feel incredibly lucky to have came away from it with a point. But as I said in my preview, no disrespect to Plymouth, and I'm going to give Plymouth their flowers in a moment, don't worry if you're a Plymouth fan listening to this, but Boro were absolutely awful. And first half, as I say, game should have been out of sight. This is a Plymouth side who have the worst defence in the league this season, and you could say, well, that was shown in the fact that Boro managed to score 3 goals, but they are also a team who are the worst creators in the Championship. Their XG is amongst the lowest by a mile in the league. They're the lowest scorers by a mile in the league, and yet today the chances they created against this Boro team were unacceptable, quite honestly, and it was like a return of the Boro of old. The Boro before who you couldn't quite trust, the Boro of old who would drop points and have these chaotic games where you think, where on earth has this performance come from? And when you start to think that we've ironed out these performances where we go to places where, teams we should be beating, again, no disrespect to Plymouth, but teams Boro should be beating if we want to push for any form of promotion. But like we used to always do, and like what we haven't done as much this season, our record against the teams in the bottom 6 is a lot better than what it was last season. Exactly like last season, we go to a place and we find a way of losing the game ourselves by some atrocious, terrible decision-making and errors and mistakes. And this is a stark reminder as to what separates Boro from the teams above us. And, you look at our team, you look at our squad, you look at the gap to the top 4 now, you look at the overall situation, you take a step back and you look at where we are and what we're probably fighting for now. And given the desperation, you could say, from the guys at the top of the club to keep hold of our best players, the fact that this is a championship season that is a lot more open, where the opportunity for a team like Boro, with the squad we've assembled to really make a challenge for the top 2, was on. Even though it was never the expectation, I think now to see this Boro team repeating errors of old, dropping stupid points like this, and you now look at the gap to the top 4, Boro team who are probably going to be scrapping for the final 2 playoff places, that is not good enough, given what we've sort of set up and what we've tried to achieve this season and the squad we've kept, the players we've kept, the opportunity that was there. I think this could be the day where Boro's promotion hopes really took a blow. Some of the things we saw in this game today were a stark reminder of what, unfortunately, this team can produce on an off day. So, well, let's just get into it, because, as I say, Plymouth are a team who have done all right at home, but, taking a step back again, a lot of them games that they've won, a lot of them points they've accrued, have come extremely late in games at the very death. But today, that wasn't the case. Boro were absolutely hanging on in there for the majority of it and kept dragging ourselves back into a game we simply didn't deserve anything from. And a lot of that come from the first half. And there were a few surprising changes, and changes I I now look back and don't agree on. I mean, I said in my preview, I looked at, Lath and Bergzorg starting. I thought the rest of the team remained as it was, and it was pretty much the same team as what I thought it would be, other than Conway being in for Lath and McGree being in for Bergzorg. But I think it's shown in the second half when we brought the pair of them on. We just looked a lot more dangerous. But the first half was absolutely atrocious from Boro. It was a really, really, really bad first half. Actually, the final half an hour, first 10 minutes, I thought we started pretty well. We had a degree of control. We were playing the ball around nicely. We looked dangerous. Conway had a goal disallowed for offside. I thought, yeah, we'd started well enough. But this is the problem that Boro have. The top teams maintain control. They keep composure. Yeah, you expect a wave from the opposition. You expect a reaction, and that's what I thought Plymouth gave after the first 10 minutes or so, and they had a good spell. But that then remained constant for the entire of the first half because Boro were all over the place. After that initial promising start, we were just so bad in so many areas. Our ability to keep the ball was absolutely terrible. We were terrible at maintaining possession. Our touches were absolutely awful. Plymouth were just all over us. They were the far, far better side. They were fantastic in the first half. They really, really were. They outfought Boro in every single area of the pitch. They won every single 50-50, whether it was in midfield or in attack or defence. Whenever there was a 50-50 ball to be won, they came out with it. They out-battled us. And there were some areas on the pitch where they exploited us. And we were absolutely awful. The midfield in the first half, Hackney and Howson, were both just given the runaround. They may have not been there. They may as well have been invisible, the pair of them, because going forward they were terrible on the ball. But my God, our midfield was getting bypassed so easily. Time and time again, they were playing through our midfield like it wasn't even there. And then on either wing, we were getting cooked. Time and time again, Dykesdale was having a nightmare down the left-hand side in the first half. Granted, I will say much better in the second half from Dykesdale. But Neto Borges dropped a Lucas Engel versus Sheffield Wednesday here. He got absolutely tortured. And Plymouth clearly looked at Boro, and we've seen other managers come out and say this, and they were going to do this prior to games recently. They went after our left-hand side. Leeds did it, got success. Plymouth did it, got success. Bundu and Mumba destroyed Neto Borges time and time again. They consistently doubled up on him. 2 versus 1, but Boro weren't doing anything about it. There was no support from Riley McGree to help Neto Borges, but that's no excuse for Borges, who was just getting rinsed over and over again. Defensively, it was really, really poor, and it was a case of when and not if Plymouth scored in that first half. Boro were offering next to nothing, really going the other way. Constant Plymouth pressure. Boro were hanging on for dear life, and Plymouth got what they deserved on the 38th minute with a goal from Gibson. And again, Boro unable to keep the ball, getting down the side of us incredibly easily. Cross comes in from the left-hand side. Looked offside at first, but it wasn't. Hardy is behind Dykesdale, gets a good flick on. The initial cross, Gibson appears to be level or behind Hardy. No one tracking him back at the back post. He's miles ahead of everyone else in the Boro defence. Gibson gets a header in at the back post, and Argyle lead. And it's no less than what they deserved, and it should have been more. Brynn made a huge save not too long afterwards. Once again, another cross from that left. Boro's inability to defend crosses in this game was amateurish, to be honest with you. But I have no idea what George Edmondson is doing here. I mean, just boot it. Why is he on his hands and knees trying to head a ball that's about half a metre off the floor? I don't understand it. It's a shocking decision from him. It gets played out. I think it's to Bundu, it might be. Brynn comes out, makes himself big, makes a huge save. Should have been 2-0. Should have been. And to be fair, I think there was a moment in the first half, and there were a few penalty calls throughout the game for Plymouth. There was 2 in the first half for Edmondson, 1 in the second half from Neto Borges. What I will say is I think the one either side of the middle one weren't penalties. I think Edmondson gets the ball with the tackle he makes in the left-hand channel in the first half. Borges also does well second half with the challenge he made. However, the second shout, I think, should have been a penalty. I from all the replays I've seen, and I'll have to probably stick the one I got on my phone while watching it, on screen because I don't think it was in the highlights, but I don't think Edmondson gets any of the ball. And I think out of the 3 potential penalty shouts Argyle should have had, the second one is the one I think they were unlucky with. So, quite honestly, first half, a disgraceful first half from Boro. You know, we just never got to grips with the conditions, with Plymouth. They were just the far better side. They wanted it more. They were sharper. They won every battle, every 50-50. They targeted our wings and kept getting constant joy. And the only positive from a Boro point of view is that we didn't come in any worse off than 1-0 down in the first half, because quite honestly, it should have been more. And, you know, the only way is up second half. And, I mean, the performance improved second half, but it couldn't have gotten worse, quite honestly. It couldn't have gotten worse. The only thing that improved second half was us offensively. We were still all over the shop, going backwards the other way. And that was shown by every time we clawed ourselves back into the game, within minutes, we were behind again. And that just tells you the sort of game management of this Boro team. You know, that the lack of being able to just take control of a football match and do what the best teams do, manage the game, learn from the mistakes that are continually happening, that Boro just didn't do. Even in the second half, there was no sign of us trying to stop and prevent the obvious issues that kept happening over and over again. And even with Carrick, no substitutions again until the 75th minute. And even they were incredibly predictable substitutions. He did nothing to prevent Plymouth's constant joy down Boro's flanks, left-hand side mostly, over the right. As I say, I thought Dijksteel eventually got a grip and did actually quite well second half, but down our left was where the main issues were coming from, and we did absolutely nothing to rectify them throughout the game at all. And that's what the top teams do. You know, they put a lid on any problems that are happening, they manage the game, and they just calm things down, find a way, they make it professional, they get the job done. Boro were just too chaotic in this game. Even in the second half, when we were better, we never once had a degree of control in the game. We never once nullified Plymouth's, strengths. It was just like a basketball game, end to end. And quite honestly, you can't go to any team in this division and concede 3 and expect anything from it. So, yeah, second half was an improvement, but still absolutely nowhere near the level Boro should be at against a team, again, I stress, we're bottom in every single metric, attacking-wise, offensively and defensively. And yet the amount of joy they had against Boro was criminal, to be honest with you. We did get level on the 50th minute. Johnny Howson got a shot from inside the box. Can't recall if it come from a corner or a cross, but it fell to him and he took a shot. It was going straight at the goalkeeper, to be fair, but it deflected off Hardy into the far corner. Back in the game, you think, right, we've got level. Let's calm things down. Let's take control. Get back in the game. Learn from the mistakes. Didn't happen. Because in the 72nd minute, Plymouth got themselves back in front, and would you be shocked to see it came from the exact same avenue that all their joy came from previous to that. Once again, they target Boro's right-hand side. Once again, they play in Bundu, who made another great run in behind Borges, who was just at 6s and 7s throughout this game. There was an unfortunate slip from George Edmondson, but quite honestly, the damage was already done. It's a great ball in the box. Giabi's there to latch onto it, and he smashes it home. And once again, Plymouth score exactly the same goal as they did in the first half. But you won't be surprised to hear how their third goal comes about. Oh no! But again, the game continues to be chaotic. One way, then the other. 5 minutes later, Hayden Hackney gets a goal back. This came just after Boro made some subs. Finally, on the 75th minute, Bergzog come on for Riley McGree. Instantly makes an impact. I thought him and Lass should have started, and I thought we were better going forward in the time that they were on the pitch. Bergzog slips a lovely ball in behind to Hayden Hackney. Shot is saved, but it's a very good reaction from Hackney and a very good finish to get us level. Once again, you think, right, we've got ourselves out of jail for the second time. It's 2-2. Finally, Boro, you've not learnt so far by what Plymouth are constantly trying to do. You've not learnt from how they're clearly trying to attack you. But for the second time, we've played our get out of jail free card. Surely now we can take control of the game and get the job done. Oh no, because 4 minutes later, you won't believe what happens. Boro allow another cross into the box. Uncontested once again. This time it's from the left-hand side. Dijksteel's dragged away from one of the Plymouth players who makes a run inside. There's no one. Ben Doak doesn't recognise, doesn't smell the danger, doesn't track back. A free cross from the left-hand side, unchallenged completely. And Neto Borges, who again had an absolute Western super in this game, fails to track Bundu at the back post, who is free, and they score the third goal, which again was cross, tap-in. All 3 goals exactly the same, and at no point did Boro ever learn to try and prevent this. Shocking game management, really, and shocking from the coaching team, to be honest, to not recognise that this was an issue that kept happening and we just kept conceding from it. And then would you believe it? 3-3 in the end. Boro get a corner, swung in from the left-hand side, Fried as well to head it from the back post. Another substitution that was made that had an impact. Latilath volleyed it in from the back post to make it 3-3, and that's how the game ended. Now, I don't know how you sum this up, but as I say, attacking-wise, Boro were fine. Absolutely fine, especially second half. First half, across the board, both going forwards and backwards, was absolutely shocking. However, second half, Boro picked it up. We were better on the ball, created more openings, took our chances, and Michael Carrick's substitutions of Bergsorg and Lath had the desired effect in terms, and Dale Fry, to be honest, in terms of pretty much our final 2 goals came from involvement from all 3 of them players. But it's defensively where the issues lie in this game. And for Boro to concede 3 goals against this Plymouth team, it's absolutely criminal in the first place. And I mentioned in my preview, Plymouth had only totalled a grand total of an XG of 15.2 all season. So in their opening 20 games, they only mustered a total XG of 15.2. I don't know what that works out as per game, but it's not even 1 XG per game. It's nowhere near that. So on average, they don't even get anywhere near 1 XG per game. Look at the stats here. They mustered 3.56 XG against Boro today. And for a team who don't create much, from Boro's defence, that is shocking. And this is where XG is such an important statistic. I'll stand by data until the day I drop, and I always will. And I don't get people's ignorance and dismissal of XG. I really don't get it, because it literally paints the picture of what this game was. Because you look at the stats there, you think, wow, Boro have had more shots, more possession, more shots on target. That means we were the better team, right? No. Look at the XG, because that tells you the actual story. Doesn't matter how many shots each team has. It's the quality of chance that's important. It's the quality of chance that the opposition had. And Plymouth had 3.56 XG. They nailed their XG in fairness, because Boro allowed them to. We overperformed ours and were lucky that we got out of this game with 3 goals and with a point. And I don't care that Boro had 17 shots and 6 on target. So we should. Plymouth have the worst XG against in the league. They concede the most opportunities and the most goals in the league. It shouldn't be a surprise to see a Boro team rock up here and score 3. I thought we'd score 3. I thought we'd win 3-1. It's the defensive stats that are the worst. We should not be conceding 3.56 XG. 6 big chances. 6 big chances to this Plymouth side. It's shocking. It really, really is. But again, listen, I know there'll be Plymouth fans in the comments who'll be delighted with how they played, and they'll be thinking I'm being sort of, maybe disrespectful to how they performed. Plymouth fans, I promise you that is not the case. I'm looking at this from a Boro point of view, and I'm naturally going to be massively frustrated by how we've dropped points here. But let me just say, Plymouth were absolutely fantastic today, and they didn't play like a team who have barely created a thing in most games. They didn't play like a team who were 24th, bottom of every stat, and quite frankly looked hopeless in every which sense. I thought they were great here. And they backed that up with a very promising performance against Sheffield United. But again, this is the difference. Sheffield United found a way to win. Boro didn't. That's the difference. And I just want to say, for any Plymouth fans who might think I'm sort of crapping on them and I'm just focusing on how Boro should have done this and should have done that, Plymouth were fantastic today. They had a clear game plan. They had a clear vision of how they were going to get at this Boro team, and that was to get down our flanks and put balls into the box. And they did their job. They scored 3 goals from it over and over again. My frustration is that we simply never learnt to stop it, to prevent it. We did nothing to continually stop conceding the same goal over and over again. And for me, that is a huge red flag for Boro's defence, a huge red flag for our full-backs and a huge red flag for our in-game management and tactical in-game decision-making. All we did really was we made effective offensive changes, which did pay off, but we did nothing to prevent Plymouth from scoring the same goal over and over again. So for me, that's criminal, both on the pitch, no help for the fullbacks by the wingers, also criminal from off the pitch in terms of the coaching, just not recognising what was happening and seeing us just suffer from the same thing over and over again. Boro will not get anywhere if our only hope is to outscore the opposition in what quite frankly was a basketball game where we never had control for a second. What the top teams do is they shut these sides down. They shut them down, they slow the game down, they manage it, they recognise the danger, they stamp it out, and they find a way to win. That's what the top teams do. That's not what Boro do. It's what we might have started to do, but this was like the Boro of old, where, we just lose our heads and allow the opposition to have their way with us, and we find a way of dropping points. And we'll look at the league table in a bit, and as to where this leaves Boro, which quite honestly is not in a great place when it comes to what I'm sure was the expectation or the hope, really. But we'll get to that in a moment because, as I say, you might look at the stats and they might look like they're all right, but the XG for me is huge. It's pivotal in telling the true story of this game, and that's why it's important, and that's why Boro conceding this level of chances to a team like Plymouth is an absolute disgrace. Looking at the lineup then, and some of the individual performances, the fact we've come from 3 down does not mask over some terrible performances out there today, to be honest with you. I think Brynn comes out with a bit of credit. I don't think he can do much about any of the goals. He'll be fuming. I think he was furious about the third goal. How them balls were continually easily allowed into his box. He'll be furious at that today, I'm absolutely sure. The full-backs as well had a torrid time. I thought Dijksteel got a grip second half and did better. However, the third goal still came from that side. He was dragged away from the initial cross, and got no support from Ben Doak, if I'm honest. First half, Dijksteel really, really suffered. I thought the centre-backs didn't have a great day either. I thought at times Edmondson, got away with maybe conceding a penalty, got away with a really awkward error with a Brynn save in the first half. Rav did okay, but again, you've got to be defending these crosses a lot better, but they shouldn't be coming in the first place, so that's where I have a degree of sympathy for our centre-backs. Neto Borges had probably his worst game in a Boro shirt, and you could kind of, you expect him to struggle in games like Leeds, where he's up against Dan James, and it's a tough environment, but to have the game he did today against Bundu and Mumba, who were both fantastic, I think shows that Boro are still miles off having a top of the league, top 6 level left-back out there, defensively, who can recognise danger, position themselves better and stop them crosses from going in. But again, I don't just blame Neto Borges for that, because he got no help in the first half from Riley McGree, and he got no help from the coaching team either, who didn't make any changes whatsoever to help him and stop what was clearly an issue that was causing him problem after problem after problem. As for the midfield, they got good ratings, and it's quite ironic that both Howson and Hackney scored. They were better in the second half, granted. I thought Hackney picked the ball up in the second half, drove forward a lot more, and was a lot more effective going forward. But first half, they were terrible. Both of them were just really bad in possession, and they were bypassed so easily. Plymouth were just waltzing through our midfield like it wasn't even there. As for the attackers, I don't think any of the starters had a great game. Ben Doak, at times I thought he got at their full-back pretty well. Final ball wasn't quite there. So he was still effective, and I still think Ben Doak is effective, even when he doesn't have a great game. I wouldn't say Azaz particularly did well. I thought he tried too hard. I think he was desperate to, have some sort of impact against his former club. Decision-making at times wasn't great from Azaz. He got taken off, so wasn't the return to Plymouth he was hoping for. I don't think McGree did much either. I don't think he affected the game all that much offensively either. Would say the same for Tommy Conway. I thought it says a lot that Bergzorg and Lath come on and had a much bigger impact on the game than what any of our attacking four did up until that point prior. And then substitutions-wise, there's a big topic, a continued question around Michael Carrick and how predictable his substitutes are at 75 minutes. I will once again say, fair enough, Lath, Bergzorg and Fry all played a big part in the goals, but it was going the other way, where there was just no changes, no proactive changes to try and prevent Plymouth and their obvious attacking avenues and how they were getting at Boro. Nothing from Carrick. Didn't look like he was doing anything to stop it. I think he was relying on Boro scoring their way out of trouble in this game, and that's not going to work in games like this, and it's not going to work against the better sides either. If you get into a basketball game, against a Leeds or a Sheffield United or even a Sunderland, you're probably going to come out worse off. You've got to sometimes just stop what the opposition are doing, slow the game down, calm it down, get a grip of control, and then you can build again. But we never did. We just left the game to be this absolute basketball match, and that's why we didn't come out with the win, and we conceded 3 goals. So a big, once again, red flag in terms of our in-game management, and I guess a lack of recognising when there's a danger and not stopping it. And that leads me on to the league table, which, isn't great reading either. We are incredibly lucky that Watford lost. West Brom are still yet to play, so they might jump us. In fact, I don't think they can with goal diff. Well, they might actually. They're 2 goals behind us, so we might find ourselves outside the playoffs by the end of the weekend. We're lucky Blackburn lost because we've gained a point on them, but they're still 2 points clear of us with a game in hand, so I still wouldn't say it's all that much better for Boro. Top 4 all won. They all found a way to win. Now, granted, Sheffield United should have beat Cardiff, and they did by 2-0, which is what I predicted, by the way, in a very predictable, solid, clean sheet away win. That's what the best teams do, right? Leeds beat Oxford 2-0, clean sheet. Once again, that's what the best teams do. Burnley navigated a tricky home game against Watford and got past them, which is what the best teams do. And Sunderland come from behind to beat Norwich at home, which is what the best teams do. Boro are now 8 points off 4th. 8. And that's not taking into consideration that Blackburn are above us with a game in hand. 10 points off the top 2. Top 2's been gone for a while now. It's absolutely in the sunset, in the distance now. Forget about it. Boro need to be more worried about finding a way into the top 6 at this point, because Watford are a point behind with a game in hand. Blackburn are 2 points ahead with a game in hand. West Brom are 3 points behind with a game in hand. Even Sheffield Wednesday are only 3 points behind us with the same number of games. Who've we got Boxing Day? Sheffield Wednesday. If we lose that game, we're getting dragged into mid-table. We're getting dragged backwards into the top 9, never mind the top 6. And that leads me on to my final point, which this is where I'd be intrigued to hear from Boro fans, because I don't ever think the expectation was top 2. I think there was a hope that we might challenge and we might have a chance. And I think that's why we kept all of our best players, because we thought there might be a chance that Boro could challenge for top 2, although I never thought for 1 second it was a realistic expectation. I always thought we should just comfortably get ourselves into the playoffs. If we can catch up to the top 2 and compete, it would be a bonus. However, will the Boro hierarchy, with the money they spent in the summer, the players we retained, will they be happy that we're already sort of conceding to a scrap for 5th place? Will they be happy that the top 4 are ahead of us by 8 points and more? I don't think they will. I don't think they'll be happy that we're heading into January so far off the top 4, with top 2 long gone, in a scrap for the final 2 playoff places in January. I don't think they're going to be happy with that. I'll find it incredibly interesting if we stay in this position and we're in a scrap that, quite honestly, we shouldn't be in. Once again, look at the goals conceded. The top 5, you've got Sheffield United, 11 goals conceded. Leeds, 15. Burnley, 9. Sunderland, 18. Blackburn, 18. Boro, 28. We just won't learn. We will never learn. And that's the big issue. Goals conceded, defensive errors, in-game management. Until that's fixed, we're in a scrap for top 6. Top 2, forget it. We need to get ourselves into this top 6, and we need to get ourselves back on it. I know we've had 2 difficult games against Leeds and Burnley, and we scraped past Millwall, which is a tough game, but this was the start of a run where Boro really should be putting a run of results together and getting ourselves in there, dropping points to Plymouth. Again, they were great. Take nothing away from them, but statistically, they're a team who don't create anything. They are statistically the worst team in the league. I know it's a tough place to go, and maybe it might look like a good point, but for me, defensively, that's what let this Boro performance down and truly made it a shocker for me. So I'm going to leave it there because I could rant on all day, and we've hit half an hour, which might be a record. But let me know your thoughts on this Boro performance in the comment section below, whether you're a Boro fan or Plymouth fan. Again, Plymouth You are absolutely fantastic, and if you keep playing like that, you'll give yourself a ginormous chance at staying up. And I've always said I always like Argyle, so I really hope they do. They were brilliant today. Boro never learned from what they were continually trying to do. We didn't deserve anything more. We were lucky to get a point. Finally, let me just praise the travelling Boro fans. I can't end this video without mentioning them. Some of them, it took 9 hours for them to get down to Plymouth. It was windy, it was wet, the conditions looked shocking. So I credit the Boro fans for getting themselves down there and selling out that away end. They were absolutely immense. They deserve all the praise in the world today. They shouldn't have been put through a game like that, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, huge praise to them. If you were there, or if you're a Boro fan or a Plymouth fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Yeah, great performance from Plymouth. Not good enough from Boro. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for much more. We, of course, review and preview every single Boro game here on the channel. And I'll be back to preview the Sheffield Wednesday game, which is looking even more difficult given their result today as well. So that's a big game on Boxing Day for the Boro. And if you've chose to listen to this on your chosen podcast provider, which you can do via the links in the description, give me a like, a rating and a follow if you're listening on your podcast provider instead. But until the next time, guys, typical Boro was back with a vengeance today. Here's hoping it stays away on Boxing Day. But until then, do take care. I'll see you all in the next one.